For today's topic, I want to talk about empty promises and give myself and you guys a bit of a reminder of what a sin actually is under the surface. Because too often recently, I have been tempted by things that seem so good up front, but I know that deep down are not all that. And one thing I've realized about sins is that every sin begins with a promise, not an actual promise, but a lie that feels like a truth in the moment. Temptation that never shows up and says, hey, this is going to leave you feeling empty. It doesn't say, this is going to hurt your relationship with God. It doesn't say, you're going to regret this tomorrow. Instead, temptation makes promises. It promises happiness. It promises relief. It promises satisfaction. It gives you the desire that you want so badly. And in certain desperate moments, it can seem like it's telling the truth, and it seems like what you need. And that's what makes temptation so difficult. If sin looked ugly from the beginning, no one would struggle with it. Absolutely no one would want it. It wouldn't even be a thought in our mind. But sin has often disguised itself exactly as what we're looking for, and it wears mask. When we're lonely, it promises us comfort. When we're stressed, it promises relief. When we're insecure, it promises acceptance. When we're bored, it promises excitement. The problem is that sin can only deliver those things temporarily. Everything that sin provides is of the flesh and fleeting. It may be able to satisfy us in the moment, but it never can satisfy the heart. And that's why we keep going back, because what it promises never fully arrived. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 25 talks about the fleeting pleasures of sin. Notice that the Bible doesn't pretend that sin is never pleasurable. It recognizes it and it battles it. It does say that the pleasure is fleeting, temporary. Here's one moment and gone the next. Psalms chapter 16, verse 11 says, in your presence there is fullness of joy, not temporary joy, not momentarily joy, fullness of joy. That desire that we have to keep going back to sin to fill for can never fully be filled in the way that Jesus Christ fills it for us. I've started to realize that most of my struggles happen when I believe sin's promises more than God's promises. I forget the everlasting glory that God has waiting for us in heaven, and I'm tempted by the temporary of the flesh desires that I have. In those moments, I convince myself that disobedience will satisfy me more than God's obedience, that my way is better than God's way, that God is withholding something good from me. But every time I look back, sin over promises and under delivers. And that's every single time. The promise was real, the fulfillment wasn't. And maybe that's why following God requires faith. Because temptation offers immediate gratification, God often offers something deeper than that, and it takes time to see. One asks me to trust my feelings, the other trusts me to ask Him. And I'm slowly learning that every promise apart from God eventually leaves me empty. Only God can truly deliver what my heart is actually searching for. I'll leave you guys with this line. Sin doesn't become dangerous when it looks evil. Sin becomes dangerous when it looks like the answer. And I want all you guys to remember that sin is never the answer and never something to turn to. God is the only one that can truly fulfill our desires and fulfill our hearts with what we need. I love you all. I wish you all a good day.